Okay, the recording has started. For those of you who have been attending our lectures, I'm sure you will know who I am. If this is your first lecture for AUE 3761, my name is Tsepo. I'm one of your lecturers for this module. Welcome to this class, and I hope you enjoy this class. Before I start, there was a request from a student a couple of lectures ago who had said, they would like to see some class on a Saturday or something like that because of working during the week and all of that. So if you can, in the chat box, maybe indicate whether Saturdays are better for you or whether Thursdays are better for you. This won't be for every class, but it's just for us to understand if there is any appetite for another time. So in the chat box, please do let me know if there's a preference for like us to keep it to the Thursdays at lunchtime, or if this time is working better. Like I said, it really won't be for every class, but we would like to accommodate you where we can. Okay, then I also want to deal with test 2, not the actual test, but I would like to check in with you guys. How was it? Was there things that surprised you? Did you maybe enjoy the paper? What are your feelings about test 2? I would like to check in with you. So please either raise your hand, or if you can say something in the chat box. But how did test 2 go? What are your thoughts on test 2? If someone can raise their hand, that will also be great. Okay, I'm going to enable your mic. Kaylin, you can unmute yourself.
Good morning, all. I found test 2 was good because watching the class preparation with our lecturer, she had explained to us where we should focus, and I took down her notes, and yeah, I went with her guideline and I understood the test too. It was, when I saw it at first, a little bit daunting, but then when I continued to read and get the points, it wasn't so stressful.
That is great news. Okay. I am seeing in the chat box people saying, Lynette saying she really enjoyed test 2. And Susan saying they felt more comfortable. The lectures helped to get a better understanding of the topics. There's a Janelle saying they only struggled with question 3 and 4.2. And Ulukanisa saying they enjoyed the test, but you can never be sure. You can be sure whether you enjoyed the test, right? You can be sure. The classes really helped with test 2. It was better. Okay, so generally the feeling is that it was good. The recap helped. Penyu is saying, so that's great. I'm glad we are going in the right direction. I'm glad you're feeling more positive about the module, and let's try keep that momentum going forward. Yeah. I can tell you, for those students that maybe feel like they have not done well in test 2, when I did my 3rd year, it was my first time doing year modules as well. And I also started working in 3rd year. So between Feb and that's when our year started in Feb. Between Feb and June, I was actually working and my marks took a big dip. And mainly from text, which was a subject I really, really did not like. For me, all those rules, when, I prefer principles, I prefer logic, I prefer figuring things out. I don't just like when there's rules and you just learn the rules and that's it. So text was actually my worst mark as at June. And had it been a semester module, I actually would have failed text because of having concentrated on working instead of studying. I was actually saved by the fact that we had a year module because then I had the rest of the year to try and pass this module that I wouldn't have passed if it was a semester module. So if there are any students that maybe feel like that, they feel now maybe both of their marks are not great marks, I want you to know that you can come back from that. What I had done to come back from that in when I was in third year was any section that came from July onwards, I knew it like the back of my hand. So even though I didn't enjoy text, I didn't like the module, but I made sure anything new that came up, I studied, I did all the questions, I knew it like the back of my hand. People could come and ask me about those sections. I wasn't too great with the sections from first semester, but I was very, very good with the sections that come in second semester. And you can do something similar as well, okay? We're starting with substantive procedures. It is a clean slate. You can now concentrate on this. The entire tutorial letter 104 is about substantive procedures. Now, you don't have for tutorial letter 102 or 103, or even the next one, 105. You'll never have a situation where the entire tutorial letter is only about one thing. So you can really do well, okay? All right. Yeah, that's my story about third year. Let's get on to the tutorial letter and we speak about what you can expect in the tutorial letter. All right, great. Here's the tutorial letter. It is made up of 3 main lessons. Yeah? All of it is related to substantive procedures. In lesson 8, we kind of tell you all the general things that you need to know and all the principles that will help you to formulate an answer. In lesson 9, we go a bit deeper. We now go into the actual business processes. How are you going to audit revenue? How are you going to audit receivables? We now go into each and every single one of the business processes that you will find in a business, and we teach you how to formulate substantive procedures that will address those business processes. And then at the end, in lesson 10, you learn about the other things that can affect the substantive procedures that you perform. For example, if there's an expert involved, now you have to do other procedures as well. If the amount that you're auditing contains an estimate, in other words, not an exact amount, it's an estimate, then you have to do other procedures. And also, if there are some related parties having transactions, then there are special procedures for that as well. So this entire tutorial letter is all about substantive procedures. If you listen today, it will make your life much easier going forward for lesson 9. For those of you that are religious people, if substantive procedures was religion, then lesson 8 would be your Bible. That means lesson 8, you read the first time, just like the Bible, when you read the first time, some things may not make sense. You know, if you're a child and you're reading the Bible, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but you're still reading it, you're still trying to learn. And similar with lesson 8. Okay? It has the principles that you need, okay? And it has the important principles, but sometimes they don't make sense to you until you've started doing the actual procedures in lesson 9. So yes, lesson 8 is very important. It is the basis for lesson 9 and lesson 10 as well. If there are some minor things that you don't understand, remember that after doing lesson 9.1, then you come back to lesson 8, and some things will make more sense. But hopefully, today's class makes sense for you and you understand all the principles. But if not, come back after you've done lesson 9.1 and 9.2, which we are doing next week in any case. And one last thing I want to stress, if you looked at the announcement that I put up this week, I think I said it's like a bus. You know, this bus is moving. We know you had a test on Tuesday, and know you'd like a break. If this was a semester module, you'd be getting a break, but you don't have a break. The bus is moving, and I want you every single week to ensure that you stay on the bus. This is the bus of students who are going to pass this module. So this week, we're doing lesson 8. You're going to do the questions and you're going to practice from the question bank as well. And then next week, when you move on to lesson 9.1, 9.2, you will keep up to date. Okay? For as long as you're keeping up to date, you're staying on the bus with us, you are going to do well in test 3 and you're well on your way to doing well in the exam. But don't try and climb on the bus in the last week. Okay, all of you are here on a Saturday morning, so I think you're all ready to stay on the bus, and I will be driving the bus, and I will be ensuring that we get to our destination safely. We pass this module. Great. Lesson 8. Let me make this a bit bigger. Well, please don't mind these little yellow things. They are there to help me that I do not forget to tell you some things. So we are now at the stage where we're going to be auditing the numbers. Up to now, you weren't really auditing the numbers. You were, during planning, you were getting all the information you need to understand the entity, and then you were calculating materiality, you were assessing the risk, but you hadn't really at that moment dealt with the actual numbers. So, for example, if we are dealing with cash, that 150,000, up to now, you have not really tested that 150,000. You maybe, as part of understanding the entity, you've understood what bank accounts the company has that make up the 150,000. You've maybe, if there was a reason to do analytical procedures to identify any risks, you have done that as part of your risk assessment procedures. You would have tested any controls around cash as part of tests of controls. Now we're entering into substantive procedures, which means we're actually testing the amounts and also the disclosures related to this 150,000. So that's what you'll be learning. You'll be learning how to then test this 150,000 and actually all the amounts that are then sitting on the TB. As we look at this TB, it might tell us some things about this company. We see that on this TB, we have purchases, okay? We don't have a cost of sales account, so that's already telling us that we are using the periodic inventory system. Yeah? We are also seeing things like store equipment, sales and sales returns. So it almost looks like this is probably a retail company. If we're looking for other specialized, there's no real specialized accounts here. We know these types of accounts: accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, equipment, store equipment, wages payable, share capital, sales returns, all types of expenses, depreciation. These seem like normal expenses, nothing really specialized that you can say, oh, maybe this is a bank, or maybe this is a mining company, or something like that. Seems like a generic trial balance. Also, something interesting, if you see this and think maybe it is a retail company, it's very interesting that there's actually no inventory on this trial balance. So that indicate that maybe it's not a retail entity, or maybe it could be a print-on-demand shop. If it's a print-on-demand shop, someone makes an order, and based on that order, you go and you buy all the related shirts, and you print those shirts, and then you then provide it to the customer. So then in that case, there is no inventory. Everything is done on demand. Could also maybe be a drop shipping company. I'm sure you've heard of drop shipping, where you look at items on Temu and then you create your own site and sell them yourself. You actually don't have any stock. You just order from Temu and then you pass it on to whoever's ordered from your site. But the point is, sometimes you can be able to tell what type of company it is from their trial balance. Okay? You don't need to, but you can. And also, when you're auditing, sometimes the things that are missing can help you identify risk. For example, if this seems like a retail company, why would it not have an inventory balance? Okay, that's just the, reading the TB. It's nothing that you really need to concentrate on. It's just for your understanding, that we understand that this, a little bit about this TB that we're working with. You're going to see this TB as well next week. Now, let's talk about a few things. We're going to concentrate on assets and liabilities. I asked you there, generally, do you think management would want to overstate, or do you think management would want to understate assets? Okay. Checkbox or hands? Do you think management would want to overstate or understate assets? Again, we have, you can unmute Kaylin. You can unmute yourself, Kaylin. Okay, maybe you didn't mean to raise your hand. Anyone else? Do you think management would want to overstate or understate assets? Yes, Lynette, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, morning. I think it would be to overstate it.
Yes, okay, to overstate it. And why? You need to get your why from the scenario, right? It could be that they want to use the financial statements to apply for a loan. Could be they want to increase their bonuses. But generally, yes, management would want to overstate assets. You need to get your reason from the scenario. So always look for the reason from the scenario. And Lynette, I'm still going to ask you again, what about liabilities? Do you think they'd want to overstate or understate liabilities?
Liabilities is definitely understate.
Yes. Okay. Generally, they would want to understate liabilities. And also, Lynette, I want to know, how do you think, if they want to overstate assets, how would they go about overstating those assets? What would they do in the financial statements?
I think, well, assets would most probably your bank accounts and your machinery or equipment that you have. You can overstate that.
Yes, but how? How do they overstate that? What would they do?
Well, the value of the machine would be put in as high as what it really is, or your depreciation would be not be as high as it should be. Um, yeah, I
Well
don't know if they
done.
would.
Well done. Yes, you're dealing with now accuracy valuation and allocation. They can overstate it by overstating the value of the asset. So, for example, you use the example of store equipment, right? If they use depreciation, the depreciation policy, if the depreciation policy is not in line with how you're going to use the asset, then it has the effect of increasing the value. So if you have store equipment that's only going to last you, let's say 6 years, but you have a depreciation period of 20 years, now suddenly the value of the asset is going to be more than what it should be. So then it would be overstated. Yeah. There's also other ways to overstate, right? Is to record fictitious assets. So, for example, our accounts receivable here, they could record debtors that don't exist. They could record equipment that doesn't exist. So, they could record cash that doesn't exist. So, with the assets, they could also record fictitious assets. Yeah? We could also have a scenario where they record assets that are not really theirs. Okay. Sometimes that happens with, with leases, you expect to record assets that are not yours. But it also happens that they record, especially fixed assets that are not the company's assets. Now, these answers should be coming to you very quickly. Okay? You should understand from knowing whether something's an asset or something is a liability, you should know immediately what the biggest risks are. Okay? And if you do not, then that is why I am here, right, to assist you. When I used to study, these were some of the things that helped me to remember what are the most important risks in respects of assets and liabilities. Yeah? So for assets, I had a little way to remember it, and that was, I called it DOGPER. You know, your assets are debit balances. So you are concerned with overstatement. Yeah? Because you're concerned with overstatement, there's a certain way that you will test. There's a certain direction in which you will test. You will test from general ledger to source document. Now, why would you test that? Because of the things that we've said about overstatement. If you've overstated, then you may have included assets that are fictitious. If you've included assets that are fictitious in the general ledger, we will select from the general ledger, and when we go try inspect the asset, it won't be there. Or when we try, if it's a vehicle that you've recorded, when we ask you for the license and registration, that won't be there. If it's a data that you've recorded, they won't have an invoice. So this direction of testing will be from general ledger to source document. I hope the general ledger to source document makes sense because it's an important concept. The students that take the source and then try and agree to the source to the general ledger are incorrect. So the direction is extremely important. Yeah. So debit balance, overstatement, general ledger to source. Your primary assertions, we don't actually use that term anymore. Okay, but the new term doesn't work well with the acronym. So I'm still calling it primary assertions, but it's more your dominant assertions for debit balances are existence, rights, and accuracy valuation allocation. And it's exactly what we've just said now. You know, you may record fictitious debtors. That's existence. Okay. You may record cash that doesn't belong to you. You may record fixed assets that don't belong to you. That's rights. And then we've also said how you can maybe use depreciation to ensure that you value PPE higher. You can use the higher amounts for your debtors. That's then your accuracy, valuation, and allocation. Although this is to audit for substantive procedures, this also helps you with your risks, right? If you are asked for risks at assertion level for debtors, immediately your risk, the three biggest risks you must think of is existence, rights, and accuracy, valuation, and allocation. You must go find the reason why in the scenario. So you know for assets, existence is an issue. If you're asked risks of material misstatement at assertion level for debtors, you need to go find in the scenario, why is existence an issue? Okay, in the scenario. So you might be told that management bonuses are based on net asset value of the company. Now, that is a financial statement level risk. It'll affect the entire financial statement as a whole. If you ask for risk at assertion level, you can then bring down that risk from financial statement level to assertion level. Why? Because management may then record fictitious debtors in order to increase the value of the debtors to have a good net asset value, because their bonuses are based on net asset value. Yeah? So when you are asking a risk question, find in the scenario what relates to existence, what relates to rights, what relates to accuracy, valuation, and allocation. Those are your dominant assertions for assets. That's where the major risk lies. Yes, we have other assertions and they'll probably be in the answers as well, but those are your main ones for assets. Liabilities is then much easier. The credit balance. You're concerned with understatement. You're going to go from source to general ledger. So when you're dealing with liabilities, our tests for unrecorded liabilities, we go and we find payments after year end. That's our source. And we try and link those payments to whether they were recognized as liabilities as at year end. In other words, did they accrue when they needed to accrue, or did they have a payable when they needed to have a payable? So then you're going from the source and then you're taking it to the general ledger. If we're testing for understatement, then we're saying that the amount, not all the liabilities, may then be recorded. How do we try and find that? We try and get a source, and hopefully an independent source or an external source if we can. That's why for court cases and those type of liabilities, we ask for a lawyer's letter so that we can see, have they addressed all the court cases that the lawyers are dealing with? Have they addressed them in the financial statements? Do they have provisions for them and things like that? So direction of testing is quite an important concept, but it should make sense. It should make sense that for assets, you're going from general ledger to source. It should make sense that for liabilities, you're going from source to general ledger. Your primary assertions are therefore completeness and valuation, accuracy, valuation, allocation. They may not record all the liabilities, and they may record them at a lower amount in order to understate them. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of theory to just help you in terms of your understanding. Let us now do a little bit of practice. General procedures, these are extremely important. They are in your True Letter 104, page 18. You will see these, okay? You will see these in your test 3. You will see these in your exam. students still keep forgetting about general procedures. The only reason I can think why you'd forget things that are this important is because it's lesson 8 and then we still do lesson 9, lesson 10. So then students forget about lesson 8. That's the only reason I can think of, but you shouldn't be forgetting. General procedures are applicable in third year, CTA, and at board. When I mark board papers, it's very sad when you see students dealing with, more of the challenging concepts that come in lesson 9 and forgetting these very simple concepts that give them easy marks in a test. Okay, general procedures. When we are dealing with general procedures, let me check if there's any questions. I haven't checked. Oh, sorry. Akona, you can unmute. Akona, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, Minir. I understand, Minir. You can proceed. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Remember, you can ask your questions at any time. I'm a fan of, dealing with your answers as and when you need them. So at any point, you can ask your questions. Mobile, you can unmute.
Sorry, sir, it's not a question, just a request. Can you please zoom in your screen? I'm struggling to see some of the content.
Okay. Okay. Better, I hope.
Yeah, okay.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm just going to go back quickly to our trial balance. With our trial balance, lesson 8, with regards to general procedures, we're not really yet auditing the details of the amounts just yet. So if we think of this revenue, this 800,000, it's made up of a few transactions, or let's say it's just made up of 2 transactions. One transaction is 500,000, the other transaction is 300,000. Together, they make 800,000. At this point, we're not yet auditing the 500,000 and the 300,000. That's next week's lecture on the revenue business process. Right now, we're dealing with general procedures on the 800,000. Yeah, so this is even before you've actually started auditing the detail of the 500,000 and the 300,000. So one of the things that you need to do before you can start auditing this 800,000 that you see on the trial balance is to request a schedule from the client of all the transactions that make up this 800,000. It's amazing how many times you request a schedule of transactions that make up the 800,000 and then you get transactions that make up 900,000 or transactions that make up 600,000. So it's very important that you actually get a schedule and you agree the total of that schedule to the TB, to the general ledger, and to the financial statements. That schedule that you get, you also need to ensure that you recalculate that schedule, because sometimes the transaction of the schedule again will not total 800,000. The point is to ensure that the amount that you are auditing is in fact the amount in the financial statements. Okay, so general procedures. Let me mute someone. Here we go. So general procedures. Your first general procedure is obtaining a signed written representation from management on the matter being audited. It's quite a simple procedure. Management mainly will write to you that the revenue amount of 800,000 is the correct amount to their knowledge, to the best of their knowledge. That's all they need to say. Okay? Now, some of the things that students don't do right in this part is when we say to you, you must audit revenue, then you need to go get a signed written representation with regard to revenue. If we're saying you need to audit payables, then you must get a signed written representation in respect of payables. You must be led by what we require of you in the required. Okay, so you follow the required. So I've given examples here that we can practice with. The first one is one of the simpler ones. If we say provide, if the question says provide the substantive procedures required to test revenue, one of your answers based on the general procedures will be obtain a written representation from management regarding revenue. Yeah? It's that simple. Yeah? And students forget this. It's all your general procedures are easy marks, and they are things you should be starting with in your answer. So as soon as you know, oh, I'm already earning my marks, it gives you confidence to carry on with then your lesson 9 procedures and then your lesson 10 procedures. It's actually a very simple process to answer substantive procedure questions, but just follow the process. It will help you, gives you confidence, and also ensures that you don't forget your marks. Sometimes with both the October-November exam and with the Jan-Feb sub that we had, students will maybe write their lesson 9 procedures only. They forget about general procedures or lesson 8 procedures. They forget about their lesson 10 procedures. But if you follow the process, then it's impossible for you to forget, because you're dealing with lesson 8 first, your general procedures, then you're dealing with lesson 9, your business process procedures, then you're dealing with lesson 10, your other considerations. When you see a question that's maybe 21 marks and you wonder, what must I write for 21 marks? Well, 5 or 6 or 7 of them are from lesson 8, 8 or 9 or 10 of them are from lesson 9, and definitely 5 or 6 are from lesson 10. So you need to be dealing with all the lessons to get all your marks. Don't forget lessons. So if I already give you guys the answer for question 1, okay. So I'm already giving you guys the answer for lesson 1, the question 1, and I say to you, let's edit. Okay, I say to you, that is the answer. And then I want you to give me the answer for, this is not the right color. Let's give it a nice color. And give it, I don't like red. Will blue work? Yeah. Okay, so obtain a signed written representation from management regarding revenue. Now look at number 2. If the required say to you, provide the substantive procedure to test the accuracy of revenue. Now, what is your answer for obtaining a written representation? How does your answer change? Okay, Remedy, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks. We're still discussing written representations, right?
Correct, yes.
Yes. So obtain a signed written representation from management to confirm accuracy of revenue.
Thank you. Okay. Now, some of you may think, that is a simple answer. But it's amazing how many students forget to deal with what we've asked them to deal with. In 2, we've asked you to deal with accuracy of revenue. So your written representation must deal with the accuracy of revenue. Okay, And that's what you did, Remedy. So well done. The third one says provide the substantial procedures that you will perform to test the assumptions in the calculation of receivables. What is the matter being audited now? It is the assumptions in the calculation of receivables. So that is what your answer must show. The signed written representation must be regarding the assumptions in the calculation of receivables. Very, very important that you understand this concept. It's such an easy marks, but it's so sad when you see students not getting this mark at board level. Board students are still not getting this mark. It's really, really easy. All your general procedures, you should be getting full marks, but students do some silly things, which I'm showing you today that you can avoid. Yeah? Okay, also general procedures, obtain a schedule of transactions of the year, for the year, or the schedule of calculation for the balance as at year end, and agree the total to the balance on the general ledger, trial balance, and annual financial statements. So that goes back to the beginning, okay? Remember when we spoke about this 800,000, you go and you obtain the schedule of that 800,000. You make sure that you recalculate to get to that 800,000. You calculate the schedule from the client. That schedule must agree to this 800,000 on the trial balance and must also agree to the amount that's presented on the financial statement. There should be 800,000 being presented in the financial statements. So that is what this procedure, this general procedure relates to. It's that you must agree the total. You see the total is in bold. Why? Because we get answers from students that say, agree revenue to trial balance, general ledger, and financial statements. That's wrong. You must obtain the schedule. You must agree the total of the schedule that you've obtained to the TB, general ledger, and financial statements. So it's an important distinction, and students sometimes do forget it. Don't know why. The next one, recalculate costings or cost and cross cost, the calculations of the general ledger accounts and the financial statements, documentary evidence, and reconciliations. Both of these must be applied to the scenario. Just like we've done with the written representations, we applied them based on what the question asked of us. And you then need to go do the same with regards to the recalculation and the agreeing the total to GB trial balance and Fs. The general procedure as it's written here, if you write that in your answer, you are not going to get any marks. You must apply it to the scenario that we have then given you in the test. So to that end, I then have another practice question for you here. You received this schedule of transactions for revenue. Yeah? Regarding the two procedures we've just gone through, yeah, what would your answer look like? So regarding the first one about obtaining a schedule and regarding the second one about, recalculating, what would your answer look like? Okay, so either hands or in the chat box, what would your answer say? Gida, you can unmute.
Morning, sir, and morning, everybody. I'm not actually answering the question. I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, so I see that in the general procedures, there's a point where it says we need to obtain attorney's letter. So I want to just know, like, why and what attorney letter, like, what is it that we should look out for in the attorney letter? Because the management report, I understand, but the attorney letter.
Okay, the reason I dealt with only the written representation is because that's the general one, and that's going to apply to all your classes of transactions, and that's going to apply to all your account balances. Attorney letters don't apply to everything, okay? They are applying only to, payables and provisions, because that's where you deal with your court cases. You either make a provision for them, or an accrual, or some type of liability. So we will deal with that as part of the business processes, which is in lesson 9. Same thing with the bank confirmation letter. Okay, it's also in lesson 9 as part of your bank procedures. So these are not too general. It's good for you to know them, but we deal with them again in lesson 9. So at this point, you don't really need to concentrate on these letters, but just so you know why the attorney's letter is in respect of court cases, it's so that you can agree the court cases that the attorney is dealing with to the provisions to provide for any of the payouts for those legal claims. With regards to a bank confirmation letter, the bank confirmation letter just confirms the bank account balance, and also, any special terms and conditions around the bank. And again, you will learn about that in lesson 9. Yeah. Okay, is there someone who's going to answer my question about how would you word your answer for the schedule of transactions that you received for revenue? Okay, just based on those two that we discussed, what does your answer then look like? Lynette, you can unmute.
Okay, I'm going to give it a try now. I would say obtain a written representation of the listed transactions.
Well, we've already done that for I'm now dealing with these two. So the one, these two general procedures, okay? So now I'm not on written representations anymore. I'm now on those two general procedures. Now I want you to word them for me based on this practice example. Do you see those two, Lynette?
No, I'm not sure which two you refer to.
Okay, so there where it says obtain a schedule of transactions for the year, a schedule of calculation of the account balance as at year end, and agree the total to the balance on the general ledger account, the trial balance, and annual financial statements. Right now, that general procedure is generic. It's not applied to this example. So if we're applying it to this example, we have been given this schedule. We need to agree the total of the schedule to the general ledger, trial balance, and annual financial statements. So your procedure would say, obtain the schedule of transactions for revenue, which is this, and agree the total of the transactions for revenue to the general ledger, the trial balance, and the annual financial statements. Okay. Do you understand?
Yes, thanks. So basically, the general procedures is management's confirmation that the info that was given to you, the financial statements, the figures, is correct and true according to their knowledge.
That's the written representation, yes. General procedures are all the procedures you need to do around the entire balance before you start auditing the individual amounts that make up the balance. So in our example, you've now been given these transactions. If you add these transactions up, they make up that 800,000 that we saw on the TB, okay? We're not auditing the individual amounts yet. So only next week would we be dealing with this 85,000 Rand. Next week, we'll be dealing with 110. Next week, we'll be dealing 95. We're not auditing those amounts just yet. We're just now agreeing that the total of the transactions, does that equal 800,000? Because it must. And then also that 800,000 must agree towards on the financial statements. That's all we're doing. We're agreeing the total now. Okay, very important is the total of the schedule. You're agreeing it to your general ledger, you're agreeing it to your trial balance and your annual financial statements. Okay? Also, the next procedure is recalculate castings. This is where you cast and cross-cast any document that you receive from the client. Because you received the schedule of transactions, you must cast it. Okay, you must. Casting means you're adding all these amounts and they must equal 800,000 because that's what's sitting on your TB. Yeah. Okay, great. Let me see if I have any questions. Gabito, you can unmute.
So I think how I would phrase the first part, like the first general procedure, I would say, inquire for management to provide a list of transactions for the revenue account, so that you can do a recalculation for the amounts in the credits and the amount in the debit side to agree to the balance.
Okay, I'm happy with what you're saying. You just need to stick to making it 2 procedures because now you've combined obtaining. You spoke about recalculating, which is important. You must recalculate the schedule, great. And then you must also take the total and you must agree to the general measure, TB, and financial statements. So just make sure that you just stick to the wording, okay? Your marks are in ensuring that you have a total, transactions, you have a total, and you're agreeing that total to the GL, TB, and financial statements. All right, yeah, but I'm happy with your answer. It's just make sure you stick to the wording, but don't worry. In the tutorial later, we have examples that will assist you. So there's time, you'll be able to practice that. It's okay. Then the others, they're not too crazy. The other general procedures, students generally are able to give these to us without much issues. The ones that I dealt with before are the ones that normally give students issues. So agreeing opening balances with closing account balances on previous years' working papers, that will obviously only apply to account balances. Your revenue, your cost of sales is not going to have opening balances, but your PPE, your bank account, all of those account balances, they're going to have opening balances. So yes, we need to agree the opening balance of this year to closing balance of last year based on working papers or audited financial statements. Testing postings from subsidiary ledgers to the general ledger, that's also fine. You learned that in lesson 9 as well, so it's not never too big of an issue. Whenever you have things that need authorization from the board, for example, capital expenditures, you need to inspect the minutes of meetings with regards to the authorization. Also, very simple, students don't really have any issues with that. Doing an overall review of abnormal items in the general ledger accounts. In the example of revenue, if you go to the general ledger and you see that there are, negative amounts in revenue, you would want to be asking management, why are the negative amounts in revenue? So that's a review of the general ledger account for anything that's unusual. You will see that also come up in lesson 9. Testing the logic of documentary evidence. If you maybe receive a cash flow statement, then it must only relate to cash. There mustn't be any non-cash items in there. For example, there shouldn't be depreciation in a cash flow projection. Presentation and disclosure will also deal with this as part of lesson 9. If it is the first time that you're auditing that client, you would like access to the previous working papers so that you can test the opening balances. If you were the auditor, then you simply agree the opening balance to your previous year working papers and your audited financial statements. But if you are not the auditor, then you are going to, with permission from the client, go and inspect the working papers of the predecessor auditor. Substantive analytical procedures are also general procedures, but those are dealt with in lesson 8.2. Okay. Now we are going to go into the structure of a substantive procedure. I think last year you would have already been taught how to structure a substantive procedure. Excuse me. But this is then a little bit of a recap. Okay. Substantive procedure says check minutes to see if transactions were approved by management. Firstly, we really try not to use the word check. We have better verbs than that. You know about your auditor's toolbox based on tutorial letter 103, which outlines the various things you can do: inquiry, inspection, observe, reperform, recalculate, all those things. Those are the types of verbs that we want you to use. With substantive procedures, we also use agree a lot. You will see agree in some of our answers and a lot of our answers. So check is then not the appropriate verb. Use the appropriate verb. Check minutes to see if transactions were approved by management. Minutes, yeah, that is a source document. When you give us a source document, you need to be clear what source documents that is. Is that minutes of the secretary's meeting? Is that minutes of a director's meeting? Is that minutes of just a normal team meeting? Is that a sales meeting? We need to know what minutes you are referring to. So it's very important that you put the correct source documents. In the tutorial letter, there is an entire section that is dedicated to source documents. You will probably understand it better more when we get to lesson 9. So even if you're not 100% sure now about source documents, that's okay. You will understand it better when we get to lesson 9. And then they hadn't dealt to see if transactions were approved by management. You must deal with the why when answering a substantive procedure question. However, there are circumstances where you don't need to deal with the why, especially if you're agreeing two source documents to one another. Then the why is because those source documents are supposed to agree to one another. So it's not always that you'll have a why, and there'll be plenty examples that you will see in the tutorial letter where you don't have a why because you don't need a why. All right. Here, I like to show you some of your guys' answers. So here are some answers that we got from the October-November exam. And I want you to tell me, you haven't seen the question, you haven't seen the required, but just from reading these answers, what is wrong structurally with these substantive procedures? Okay. Let's read the first one. They have a heading that says payment of interest in arrears. Then they say, confirm that ABTV has paid interest monthly in arrears as required by the loan terms. Check for any late payments or penalties that have been incurred due to delayed payments. What is structurally wrong with this procedure, and how would you correct it? Remedy, you can unmute.
No. I wanted to ask a question. I've
Okay,
not
we'll come back. We're gonna come back now. I'm just gonna start then with Nzwaki, do you want to answer my question? What is wrong with the substantive procedure? How would you correct it?
Good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone. I would correct this substantive procedure by first using the correct verbs, and I would rephrase it as obtain the loan agreement and inspect the loan terms to confirm that ABTV has paid interest in areas as per the loan agreement.
Okay, so you can see the heading there is payment of interest, and yes, you are trying to confirm what the interest amount is, and for that your source document will be the related agreement. So well done. Okay, but the second part here is if you want to confirm payment of interest, what will be your source document for confirming payment of interest? So now we've confirmed what is the interest amount per the loan agreement. Now, to confirm that it's paid, what's the correct source document? I'm sticking with you there. What is the correct source document to confirm a payment?
The correct source document would be the amortization schedule.
Yeah, but you want to know, is this paid? If anything is paid.
Oh, okay, the bank statement.
The bank statement. Okay. So that is a fundamental flaw that the student made here. They're confirming a payment by not looking at the bank statement. Yeah, there's lots of places where you can maybe see a payment. You can see that it's been paid by looking at the GL. You can see by the amortization, but the most reliable source is the bank statement. So sometimes when you see a procedure in our answers and it doesn't look like yours, chances are you've chosen a procedure that's not the most reliable, and we have to work with the most reliable audit procedure. Yeah. So the payment, you should be agreeing it to a bank statement. Okay, that is the fundamental flaw that the student has made. Then the next one says, agree the amounts disclosed to the loan agreement and supporting documents. Yeah. Now, what could be incorrect with that answer? Okay, all the hands are down now. Where did all the hands go? Agree the amounts disclosed to the loan agreement and supporting documents. And by the way, we have not gone through lesson 9 that also deals with loans and all of that. So this is not, I don't expect you to be understanding those things just yet, but it's more about the structure and the structure of your substantive procedure. Okay. Nzwaki, do you have an answer for us?
Yes, but I just want to confirm before I answer, the amounts that we are trying to agree, are they still the payments? Or what kind of amounts? Is it like?
That's part of the problem. We don't even know what amounts. What amounts are you agreeing? I don't know. So that's the correct question. We can't know what amounts you're agreeing. You're just agreeing amounts. We don't know what amount. Are you agreeing the loan amount? Are you agreeing the interest amounts? Are you agreeing the interest rate? What are you agreeing? We don't know. So that's something, if this answer is way too vague, okay? So you picked that up, great, okay. The last one, before we go to your question, I know you had a question, Remedy. It says, confirm the accuracy, completeness of the loan repayments, ensuring they match the loan amortization schedule. Now, this one looks like it could be correct, but what is the issue with this? Confirm the accuracy, completeness of the loan repayments, ensuring that they match the loan amortization schedule. What's wrong there? Petunia, do you have an answer for us?
Yes, I'm gonna try. I think she needed to recompute or recalculate
Yeah.
the loan amortization schedule to confirm that it is accurate and complete.
Yes. I don't know why you say she. Okay.
I don't know. So.
On this module, this answer is probably a he. Okay. She's do very well on this module. So if you're a he, you need to pull yourselves up. Yes, they're saying confirm the accuracy and completeness of a loan to ensure they match loan amortization schedule, but they're not doing the actual procedure. What is the actual procedure for accuracy? What is the actual procedure for completeness? Those are the procedures you must give us. You can't just say confirm the accuracy, because then we might as well say confirm the completeness of the debtors balance, confirm cash balance, confirm, this is not giving us the actual procedures. And with regards to loans, obviously the full assertion is accuracy, valuation, and allocation, not just accuracy, but the student is not dealing with the actual procedure. Well done on picking that up. Yeah. Okay, great. So now I'm going to go back. Some of you said you had questions, so let's deal with some of your questions. Remedy, what was your question?
Thank you. Lecturer, there's something that always confuses me, and I don't know. What's the difference between casting and cross-casting, right? And
Okay.
the receiving a schedule and agreeing the totals. To me, I don't know. It just feels the same thing.
Okay. Let's deal with the casting versus cross-casting. It's essentially the same thing, but let's deal with it. Let me see if I can get quickly something to show you. Example. Okay, share. Okay, I just quickly Googled a loan amortization schedule, so it's in dollars, sorry. But when it comes to casting and cross-casting, it just speaks to the way in which you are casting. Yeah? If you are, let's say you are adding all these payment columns together and you want to know what your total payments are, that is then casting. But if you're going horizontally and you're trying to agree amounts that total to something on horizontally, that is then cross-casting. So you see, you're going vertical and you're going horizontal. So that's why they're calling it cross-casting. because it's going vertical and it's going horizontal. All that means is that you are calculating whether the amounts add up vertically and you're calculating whether the amounts add up horizontally. Hence, you are cross-costing. Great. With regards to your other question, the obtaining a schedule, okay, you can break it up into, it's one procedure, but you can break it up into then multiple procedures if that's going to help, okay? The first is that you obtain the schedule. You want to obtain the schedule of the transactions that make up the amount on the TB. The amount on our TB was 800,000. So you're going to obtain a schedule of transactions that total 800,000. You will agree the total of that schedule of 800,000 to then the trial balance, general ledger, and financial statements. Okay? You will also then recalculate all the amounts on the schedule for arithmetical accuracy. So you can then break it up into those three steps and you will get all your marks.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. To me, castings, it's one procedure, right? Recalculation of castings, and when you receive the schedule, and then comparing totals, and then comparing whatever you want to do with it. To me, it feels the same. I don't understand why I should have both of them as general procedures. That should always be there, because I feel like I'm doing the same thing.
Yes, now I get you.
Yes, I'm going to get the totals from the castings, whether I'm cross-casting or casting. I don't know. Please explain why I should always have both.
I get it. Okay. Yes, you do not always need both. Okay. Now, when we've given you specific things, like for example, let's say we give you an invoice and we say, give us the procedures you will perform on this invoice, and your general procedures normally just recalculate or cast all the amounts on the invoice. You get a mark whether you're saying recalculate the amounts or whether you're saying cast the amounts. You get a mark, right? But if we've given you more information in the scenario, and we've told you this invoice is made up of quantity times price, then when you say recalculate, we want you to say recalculate quantity times price. Okay. So then in that scenario, you don't just want to say cost, because cost is costing the entire thing. You want to say you want to recalculate, because then you're recalculating quantity times price specifically. So when you have more information about what makes up an amount, then you want to use recalculate and you want to tell us what specifically you want to recalculate. If there's no information on how that amount is made up, then a simple cost and cross cost makes sense. Okay, great.
Okay, so casting and recasting, casting and cross casting will be applicable to a specific document.
Yes, you want to cast and cross-cast any document that you receive from the client.
A source document, okay.
Yeah.
And then the receiving of the schedule of transactions, where it speaks to the total in total, like comparing the entire revenue amount that we are looking at in the financial statement, and then now it speaks to that.
So you were right beforehand when you're saying it's the same thing, right? Both of them are recalculating, both of them are casting. It's the same thing. What I'm saying to you is, if you recalculate the amounts on a schedule, or if you cast the amounts on the schedule, you will get your mark, okay? If you're given more information about what makes up those amounts. So if you have, let's go back to our example, actually. I think it will help to go back to our example of the schedule. Okay, here's our example of the schedule. You're given this schedule and it needs to add up to 800,000. So you have two options. You can say, cast the schedule of revenue for arithmetical accuracy, or you can say recalculate the total of the schedule of transactions. Both of you will get you the same mark. Okay. You don't have any information here. You just have an amount and you know it's a cash sale. If we had said to you, this 85,000 is made up of this, number of quantity at this price, suddenly your answer would change to recalculate the 85,000 by multiplying the quantities as per, the delivery note to the price as per the price list.
Okay.
So you see, you get to you give us more detail when it's a recalculation, but that's only when you have the detail. If you don't have the detail, whether you say recalculate, it's fine.
Okay, please scroll up a bit so that maybe my question can be more clearer to you. Because now I understand that, yes,
yeah,
we want to go up.
Okay.
The same talk here, yes. Yeah, you see these two general ones. Like the first one says, obtain a schedule of transactions for the year, or a schedule of the calculation of the account balance, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume they told us that trade receivables is 1 million. So you say, okay, obtain a schedule of transactions for the year and agree the total to the trade receivable balance on the general on the financial statements, right? That's general substantive procedure 1. Now,
Correct.
should I also go and say cast and cross-cast calculations on on the financial statements?
No, cost and cost on the schedule that you've obtained.
On the schedule that I've obtained.
Yes, yes.
So is it not the same as agreeing the totals on after you obtain the? Because I've obtained the transactions.
Not the same, because you first need to add up all these amounts to ensure they equal 800,000. Only once you know they equal 800,000, then you're happy with the total, and you must agree that total to the trial balance and to the general ledger and financial statements. But you must recalculate the total. You can't just get a schedule. At the bottom it says 800,000, and then you agree that to your financial statements. You must recalculate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, now I get what happens. So
yes,
because this always confuses me when I'm practicing. I'm like, but it's the same thing. Why am I doing it? So I received the schedule of transactions. I just look at what the total is saying. It says 900. I look at what the financial statements are saying. It's saying 900. But now the second step now is to perform the castings.
Correct.
I need to manually calculate everything and see that this 800 is true. It is 800, and here it is true. Okay, now I get it. It's no longer confusing. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that was it on the type of things that we're practicing. I just want to show you some things on the tutorial later. Oh, let me answer some questions first. Penyu, you can unmute.
Okay, good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I would like to get some clarity on a point that you mentioned. If you just can go to the schedule, the previous schedule you were deliberating with Remedy.
Okay.
Yeah. You had said that when we agree opening balances, you can only agree opening balances to account balances such as bank and your PPE, but not necessarily your sales and your cost of sales. Why is that? Why did you say that? I don't understand that principle. Yeah.
Okay. So for your financial statements, if the first transaction happens on the 5th and it's a cash sale and it's 85,000, what is then the balance of revenue?
There is no balance. That's the first transaction that happened for the year, I'm assuming.
If that's the first transaction, then the balance will be 85.
85, yes.
Yeah, right? And if the second transaction is 110 then your balance would be 195.
Yes.
Okay, right? Now, let's say this is PPE. You bought PPE on the 5th of Jan at 85,000. What will be the balance?
The balance would be 85,000.
It won't be 85. It won't be 85.
What? Okay, it would be what you previously owned in the previous financial year plus the new addition of 85.
Exactly. So
Oh,
that's why we need to agree opening balances for account balances.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Seppo. Thank you.
Great. Let's see who was next. Ndiada. Is it Ndiada? Ndiada, you can unmute. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to everyone, and good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
I just want to refer back to the issue of the source document for payment. Sorry,
Yes.
I'd forgotten. You mentioned that the source document would be the bank statement. That will be the only reliable source document. So I just want to confirm, what about a receipt? Is it not reliable from the service provider? Or because obviously when you make a payment, you get a receipt. So if I don't mention a bank statement and I say a receipt, will that not be enough?
Well, it depends, right? In this example, it was a loan. So they were repaying a loan, and you want to agree any payment to a bank statement. If you have a receipt, yes, you can agree to the receipt, but no, that's not that would be reliable if there was an issue with the bank statements. But when it comes to payments, if you've made a payment, the most reliable source will be your bank statement. And for loans, remember, we also get external confirmations for loans. So those are your two most reliable sources. In that case, a receipt is not the most reliable source. So you bank statements, and with regards to loans specifically, you also have confirmations.
Oh, yes, sorry, I had missed the point of loan, but then I just wanted to confirm, yes, I know that you get a proof of loan payment. So I wanted to confirm if I don't refer the source document to the bank statement, but obviously it's going to be based on the transaction that you're dealing with. Because I feel like it's more like with a transaction, it's either you're going to get like two source documents, the bank statement and either a proof or, but I just want to confirm if you refer to the other source document, if it will still be relevant or not. Yeah, but thank you.
Yeah. Okay, sure. If it's a payment, bank statement, please. Okay. It's an amount that you received, bank statement. That's then you're gonna make sure you're getting all your marks.
Okay.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Kiabetswe, is it Kiabetswe? You must unmute.
Yes, hello. It's Gabeche.
Kiabetswe.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Can you please go back to the first procedures? Because I really don't kind of understand what a written representation from management would be. I'm kind of confused. Is it like like a writing from the management to tell us how they test the revenue, or what is it?
Okay. We actually give you a link in the Maybe no link. Okay. Let me find one for you. Okay. Okay, this is from your ISA 580. It reads, if you look at the audit opinion, it deals with a lot of things that are also dealt with when you write your audit opinion. So management writes this, they write it to the auditor, and it's usually dated the same day as the audit opinion, or maybe a day before the audit opinion. So as auditors, we want coverage until we've actually signed off the financial statements. So they say things like, we acknowledge our responsibility for the fair presentation of financial statements. We confirm to our best of our knowledge and belief the following representations. And then there's a list of what they confirm. And as the auditor, you would instruct the client as to the things they need to confirm. So this is where you would say, the balance of revenues this and the controls around revenue, that you would actually instruct the client on the type of things you want representations on. You will get a written representation in respect of all your account balances or your classes of transactions. And you will also get for sort of major transactions. So if, for example, there's been a selling of a disposal of a subsidiary or acquisition of a subsidiary or a really major transaction, then you will also get a written representation to that effect. But basically, it's where in a written representation, there will be specific things that management is saying they agree to. And as the auditor, you can give them a list of things that you want them to say they confirm and they agree on these things. Yeah. So when you want to have a read on it, it is in ISA 580. You can find it towards the end of ISA 580. There is an example for you.
Okay, wait, they agree on a list of things after the audit procedures or before?
So when we tested, you must write it as part of your general procedures. You must write it before, okay?
Yeah.
Before we test it. But in real life, we only want them to sign it just before the audit report, so that if they sign it at the beginning, the problem is if something comes up to their knowledge, and they then they can say that when they signed it, it was to the best of their knowledge at that time. We want, when we are signing off the financial statements, to be exactly on the same page as management. Anything that they're aware of by that time, they must disclose to us as the auditors. And if they don't, these representations can then have them be held liable, and it can also protect the auditor against lawsuits and things like that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, great. Any other questions before we go to just some final things about the tutorial later? Okay, Remedy, sure.
Thanks once again. Sorry for the too many questions.
Questions are good. You want to get your questions answered here so that you don't have any issues when you're getting to tests and exams. So I love questions. More questions, the better.
Okay, thank you. So in regards to castings, right? In the exam now, yeah, I'm given maybe I'm testing revenue or the entire cycle. Then I say receive a schedule of transactions and agree and agree the totals to the financial statements or trial balance, whatever we're giving in the scenario. Then the next part I say, recalculate castings and agree them to the financial statements. Is that correct, or I just say recast?
Yeah, you can just say the recast because you've already agreed them in the procedure before. You can just say recast.
So
recalculate.
So recalculations and castings, you don't need to agree to anything. You just recalculate the totals on the schedule of transactions. Done. I get my mark.
Yes, because you're doing it for arithmetical accuracy. Okay. And you'll notice the general procedures don't really follow the rules of the structure of a substantive procedure. So, yeah, so you don't need to, they're special, they're general procedures. The structure, it's all your procedures that come through in lesson 9. Okay.
Okay. So when you're testing details.
Exactly, when you're testing the details.
Okay, so there's no need for me to say recast to confirm accuracy. I can say just recast the totals on the schedule of transactions. That's done.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Great. Philip, you can unmute.
Thank you very much. Just on the general procedures, I don't know if you can maybe share that slide with the points. This is one of the general procedures. I just wanted to get clarity on the wording.
Okay.
Sorry if you've closed it already.
No. Let's go. Let's see. Great. Yes.
So it's just a test logic of documentary evidence. How would one word such, we just state it like that, or would you want us to mention the specific documentary provided, or how would one?
Yes. So you will say test logic of documentary evidence, and then you will give an example based on what comes from the scenario. So an example is we ask you to audit as part of going concern. You must then audit the forecasts for management. Remember, for it to be a going concern, it should be a going concern for at least 12 months, and therefore you need a forecast for the next 12 months. If you're dealing specifically with liquidity issues, and you get a forecast and you get a cash forecast, so that you can see that the liquidity issues are going to be addressed later on. If it's a cash forecast, part of testing the logic would be ensuring that there are no cash items in there are no non-cash items in the cash forecast. So things like depreciation should then not be taken into account. That's part of testing the logic. You want to give an example that it's based on the scenario, and you will have examples of this in the tutorial letter questions as well. It's not always these ones, it's not always that they'll always be applicable, okay? So they may not be a test of logical applicable to that documentary evidence. But to do the questions in the question bank, you'll see when it is applicable.
Okay, all right. No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so to close it off, we are gonna just go to the tutorial letter that I just highlight some things to you. Okay, we've now gone through some tests of details. These substantive analytical procedures are self-study. You should be quite fine having gone through the substantive analytical procedures. We have dealt with understatement versus overstatement. External confirmations, all right? We spoke about some of the confirmations like the attorney's letters and the bank confirmations. This section is a little bit long in the tutorial letter, and it's kind of trying to give you some background. But if you understand what we discussed today, and we are gonna, talk about confirmations in the other lessons as well. Okay, it's not really necessary that you go through everything here in external confirmations. Okay, I'm a big fan of, do only what you need to do well. And to do well, it's not really necessary to go through this entire part on external confirmations. We just need you to understand that you need external confirmations for things like bank, for things like your payables, for things like your receivables. That's about it. So as long as this part it's for background, you don't need to be memorizing everything under external confirmations. Same thing goes for written representations. We've discussed today, if you can, you can look at the example if you want to have a look at the example, but this section has quite a few activities and things, and they provide background, but you really, you don't need to go through it in that much detail. Okay, when it comes to structure of a substantive procedure, we have, spoken about the how, what, and the why. Here in the tutorial letter, we go into some detail about what are your source documents, okay? There's a lot of detail here, okay? Now, this detail is important. It is quite important, but we will cover that, as we're dealing with lesson 9, okay? But it's very important that you have an idea of the type of source documents that you can use, because like I showed you, some students don't have any source documents in their answers, okay? And also, like we've discussed, some source documents are more important than others. You will learn this as we're going through lesson 9, but just know I may not have gone through all these source documents. There's too many, but they are important. They are quite important. You must know when to be using what source document. Yeah. Okay, then there is this part, page 16, it gives you some examples. Please look at the heading there. It says the procedures are there to, and for you to understand how to address certain assertions, okay? But they're not worded in terms of the how, the what, and the why. That's quite scenario specific. So just make sure you understand the type of procedures that you need with regards to, the assertions, but you must word it correctly in terms of the how, the what, and the why. Like I said, in some cases, you don't need the why, but the questions in the tutorial letter will guide you. Okay, then please try and do this today, okay, so that you can solidify your knowledge, okay? Activity 8.1.1, really try and do it today, okay? Try and do it now after class, or today, or maybe even tomorrow, but do it so that this is testing what we have just done now, okay? It's testing that, do you understand that which we have done just now when we spoke about general procedures? And it doesn't stop here. Once you've done this question, take a look at where you've gone wrong. And then next weekend, you must revise this question after you've done it this weekend. You must revise, you must know where it is that you go wrong so that you do not go wrong with regards to general procedures in the test or in the exam. The last time you read this can't be a day or two before the exam. It really can't be. As we've had discussions, you know, in the orientation, I did tell you, you need to be revising. So next week, you need to revise this question after you've done it this week. That's how you ensure that you are learning, that you are progressing, that you don't get, you don't forget things that you shouldn't forget. Like I said, students are always forgetting their general procedures, even at board level. Okay, it's really not acceptable. You're not gonna get good marks if you're missing out on your general procedures. Next week, we are adding even more procedures. So, you know, like I said, to stay on this bus, make sure that you are up to date with this week, because next week, there's new things that we need to get moving on. The last part is about a little bit about cats. The answers are there for you as well. Then the last part is also on this tutorial is about cats. Okay, with regards to cats, they are simply assisting you to perform your procedures. They're not a different type of procedures. They're simply assisting you. You have learned about cats in the previous tutorial letter before. You're just now gonna learn how to use them in a substantive procedure context. Okay. Okay. Then, like I said, lesson 8.2 on analyticals, that is your self-study. It is it's a relatively easy section. The main thing I want to highlight to you with regards to substantive analytical procedures is that it is not a complete procedure if you have not followed up. That's where the procedure lies in. So when you're doing an analytical and you're comparing revenue current year to revenue last year, yes, that's the calculation. But what you want to do with that calculation is, if there's a significant variance, you want to follow up that variance with management and obtain some type of support for the explanation from management. But you will see that in the answers for lesson 8.2. So just remember, when you give us a substantive analytical, it must finish by saying, and follow up with management on significant variances and obtain supporting documents for those explanations. This is almost the only time where you can use the word supporting documents instead of the actual source document, because it depends on the response received from management. Otherwise, we want you to tell us what source document you're going to use. There's examples, so don't worry, you can do the questions, you'll see the examples. Okay, any final questions before I close? Okay, then I think that is it. Next week, we're now going to go into the detail. Okay, now that we've done general procedures, what specific procedures are we going to do around revenue and around debtors? Thank you for joining, everybody, and we'll see you next week. You must have a good one, a good warm one, I hope. Until next week.